Let's just start there. Good to see you, Tim. Great to see you. If you don't know, Tim's running for Congress and CD1 in Virginia. And let's start where I last saw you. So let me tell everybody in the room, welcome again. We're great to see you. Um, we on the Friday Power Lunch announced there were two big marches this weekend in Virginia after the voting rights gutting thing that made us all sick. And then the Virginia Supreme Court overturned our yes vote. And then the US Supreme Court basically said, yeah, we're not going to let any of this pass and F you Democrats, right? So I went down Saturday morning to join the constitutional amendment campaign launch at the Bell Tower in Richmond, followed by the NAACP Virginia organized a rally to protest or sort of galvanize energy around what is happening in this country, especially against Black voting rights and Black people of color. And Fennell told me she wasn't going to be able to come. And then I am over there on the street getting ready, and I was telling somebody, Gayleen Knoyton was there, the head of the NACP in Virginia, and she basically, I'm like crybaby, and Fennell's not coming. And I turned and I saw you, and I screamed. I think I scared everybody I scared everybody. It was so exciting to see you.
Well,
So start
it
there,
was
how we were feeling about that day, that moment, and marching. And I know Montgomery had a march. Let's start to what's happening in this country first.
yeah, so I'll tell you how I got here, and hello to everybody. I'm so glad to see you all here. So it may be only a few of us now, but
Sure.
just know that this will go out to bunches of people. So that's
Yeah.
always very exciting. So thank you for being with us. But yes, I had so much going on personally in my family that I just didn't think I could do one more thing. And then I was reading something on Substack, and the person said, all those people who said, hey, I'd be marching with Martin Luther King, Dr. King. I'd be marching with John Lewis. I'd be out there fighting for civil rights. He says, for all the people who say that, you're doing now exactly what you would be doing then. And I just thought, oh, Jesus, I got to do something. That's not what I want to be. And it's not to say that anybody should be doing anything else. It just felt very personal for me. So I
Right.
gathered up my little family and decided that I could make it work for everybody. And they dropped me off, and I drove the 3 hours to Richmond, and I was going to surprise Catherine, of which clearly I did.
It did. I screamed. I think people thought something horrible was happening, but I was so elated. So, so a couple emotions from that. And I was telling you before we went on live that as much as I sort of want to feel all energized about what's going on, I think, and I can't imagine what other people that have fought for 80, they're in their 80s and 70s, and just the direct attack on Black lives in this country, it's really unacceptable. And it's made me just nauseous, like just a churning in my gut. I don't know how everybody else is feeling, but after the march, I felt really good. And boy, we can talk about some of the speakers that were at the march. And that's where we saw Tim in the room, Tim Sawinski running for Congress. And this is great that he's there because we want to talk about primaries today. Um, but then I just came home after all the marching, drove the couple hours home, and I just fell asleep because I was just exhausted. But I wasn't really tired. I was just emotionally tired, and my stomach was just sick. And I'm just realizing the more I listen about it and hear about it, I don't know. I think we have to acknowledge that something is really churning in this country that's bad. And then at the prayer thing today downtown, I couldn't even watch it. We talked about it at my own church today and how we need to respond as people that of just any kind of spirituality. Can't let these people have that. Let them have their way with their sickness and greed or whatever they want to call that they're doing down there to reframe what our country's about, right? They want to claim that it's a Christian country, whatever. Fine, but they're doing it on the, reframing how that included slavery, how that included different kinds of people that were living here, the Native Americans, and so on. So it's just a lot to take in, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. I don't know how you're dealing with it.
Yeah. So here's what I'd say. Um, it is very scary, and there are signs that we should pay attention to. And what was a sign that made me feel hopeful on Saturday was the fact that it was a multiracial group of people down there because no
Was.
one group can do it alone. It's going to require all of us. And that coalition is what outranks this really white Christian nationalist, this racism that is just rampant. I'll give you an example right here where we are in CD2. Jen Kiggins was on a radio show, and somewhere in the radio show, the host of the show said, "Hakeem Jeffries needs to keep his cotton picking hands off of Virginia,"
Yes, we heard that.
and she just agreed with him. And it's in the national paper now. The black
I
papers are
saw
all
that,
picking it
right?
up because we're really mad. And so,
Yeah,
that there was a time when you could just say anything to people and it would just be okay. And we're saying today that you just can't talk to us any kind of way because we are not alone. We have a multiracial coalition of people who believe in humanity and equality for everyone. But it is going to take all of us to raise up, and it is going to take voices that have been silent to speak up, to say that this is not okay. Now, I want to say something that I think is important, which is the thing that scares me a little
right.
when you think about Trump and the power that he has. So in Indiana, of course, there were folks who went against him and they did not do the
What he
redistricting that he
wanted,
wanted to
right.
do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I don't know, 7, 8 of them, however many it was, all of them except for one got voted out. He primaried them all. One got
Yes,
voted out. One stayed in, and one
right.
is still too close to call. And then, of course, it was the race this weekend with Cassidy, Senator Cassidy, who, by the way, for me, tit for a tat, but I'm just saying. But the point is that Cassidy lost, and and
Yes,
and
he
that
did.
one that one worries me less. The one that I'm worried about, though, is Thomas Massie, and the reason that I worry about Thomas Massie is because he
Yeah,
is the one who stands up to say, "Hey, the Epstein files, that's not right." So he sort of stands up, at least in ways that are way more appropriate than the other Republicans. And should Republicans oust him, then what it says to me is that the climate where Republicans reside, the place where they live, Republicans, people who support
right.
Republicans who are now MAGA, that they have not acknowledged that they are a racist bunch, which says to us then that we need to be really, really deliberate about understanding our data collection,
Right.
understanding where our people are, because it's telling us based on these primaries that these people are going through that there is far more racism than we ever imagined here today in 2026. And it's going to take all of us to outflank it.
Yeah, and it's so one thing that I was kind of surprised about, and meaning that there weren't more people at the bell tower for the march, the second march. There was a quality group of people, leaders, which represented a lot of people. And I do think I wondered about it going home. I really expected more, and maybe it was the way it was last minute organized. I get that, which shows me we have to figure out how to organize around this in a way that gets the alarm out and people really show up. And I was a little bit and I'm not saying that to diminish the power of that moment, because let me say that the youth that spoke there, the leadership is present and they're aware and they're ready. But I guess I want more out of people. And I right now, just right now, feeling that we we need that in this moment. We do need that feeling that people are getting it. And I thought in a place like Richmond, where you have so many areas where people can come together, and I get it that people are out protests, right? So at some point, I think moving past the protest part of that, we know about this, and the mobilization of people, how that's going to look. Do you have any ideas around that? Because did that kind of strike you that I really thought I would see 1,000 people there, and we didn't have
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
people, and
So
that bugged me.
yeah, it bugged me a little too. It was, last minute, but here's what it tells me is that there is just so much opportunity,
Right,
to get information out to people. I am going to continue to go back, to the Montgomery boycott to
right,
say that what they did then was to ensure that every single person understood what was happening. They
right.
all got the assignment, and we have the assignment because we are in this every
We're
single
in it.
day
Yeah, we got it.
looking and listening and trying to understand and taking notes and writing to figure out how to best deliver and organize our communities. Everybody else is not. And so
Right.
they haven't gotten the assignment. So we have to figure out how we talk to every single person. I'll give you an example. I went to the grocery store today for my mom. And I saw these 2 young men who happened to work in the grocery store, and I started walking that way, and then I just changed my direction and I walked over to them. And I said, "I know you
What
guys are
happened
wondering
that day? What happened that
why
day?
this crazy lady is coming to you." And I said and they said, "Yeah, we said you're walking that way. Now she's walking towards us. She's coming to us." And I said, "I promise. I just gotta ask you one question, and I just want a yes or no." And they go, "Okay, okay." And my question was in regards to the Voting Rights Act,
Mhm.
what had they heard about what has happened this week, in the South? And one of them said, "Well, I've heard a little bit, blah, blah, blah." The other one hadn't heard anything. And
Wow.
so what
No
that does
kidding.
it yeah, yeah, very little. And not only that, there was very little in terms of, "What can I do?" or "Wow, this is terrible." But it wasn't that emotion that we have that feels so raw
Yes.
and angry, and it wasn't any of that. I say all that to say that's the work that we have to do. We have to figure out how
Make
to
it
not only engage and inspire people, but also to get the fire in their bellies about what is happening. And that makes me think of 18-year-old Elijah who was at the rally on
yes.
Saturday.
Oh my god.
Elijah has the fire in his belly. He understands what's at stake. He said, "I know I wasn't there, but don't think I'm not stupid. Don't think I'm so stupid that I don't know how I got here." And so I think that's what we have to do is we have to create that fire in the belly of every single person in our community to understand what is at stake. So that gave me hope to say there is a lot of work to be done, but it's work that we can do.
Yeah. I wouldn't wanna respond. I've been talking in the comments. It's ox is it, Amiexatel? I can't say it right. Just shame on me. I'm looking at the words here on my screen, but I wanna say, if you're speaking about the strategy from the beginning when it comes to the Yes campaign, and I think right now, it appears that the governor just provided a news story. Structure-wise, you could see how it was going to play out. So why the attempt now? If you're talking about the Yes campaign and the move that the attorney general took the actual case of the leader Don Scott took the case to the Supreme Court and we lost there. I think right now, what I understand, there is no more movement for us legally in Virginia with that particular. That's what I'm thinking. If that's what you're referring to, and I don't think the governor really had any strategy around the Yes campaign, for sure. I think that was, yeah, I don't think besides just saying she supported it and going out there a little bit at the end, but I think she's moved on if that's what you're talking about. But I digress. I don't want to take, yeah,
Yeah, and I would just also say the Supreme Court, they took it to the US Supreme Court
US
as well,
Supreme Court. It's
and
done.
they refused to hear it too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I will say that we don't have to go into it here, but there is a lot of legal people who are on one side or the other. Many who say why it should have been able to go through,
right,
especially when it went through and we had the votes, because that is the voice of the people. And despite what little procedures are here and there, the people spoke. And so that's what's really important. What I do think though is this is just Fennell, who's not an attorney, but I watch Law and Order. Not that that matters. But what I am saying though is based on what I understand, based on state constitutions,
yes,
that Florida has a state constitution. I think Alabama and Louisiana have state constitutions. And when I listen to Mark Elias, what I hear him saying is when he talked about Florida, he said, as soon as they go to redistrict, I'm going to file a lawsuit
yeah,
because that will go against the procedures that they
right,
have in their state constitution that the Supreme Court can't really touch. So I see, whatever side you're on, I
right,
think it was necessary for us to attempt this move for people to understand what was happening. We are all aware of what gerrymandering is happening across the country. We are out gerrymandered at this point. They're 14 or something ahead based on the kind of gerrymandering that they did without the voice of the people. They just did it. So I think that we're never going to be satisfied about it, but I
right,
think that it gave us some clues about how we need to react. I think it's how you do the unexpected. I think it's how do you get people engaged and organized, which are all the things that we have to do. Would have been nice to do it a lot cheaper, but nonetheless, if we had not done this, what would our people have thought? They would have said as usual, Democrats never put up a fight. But I think this time you can say that we're willing to do the unexpected and we're willing to fight.
Yeah, and I think we need to, and I'll say that when I talked about it on Friday on the show that I just put a link in there, whether it's for Black Virginia News, there's a great, interview with Bobby Scott, representative, that unpacks the court case that I thought was excellent, and really, I think the lesson learned for us is that we are in a the system right now where it is, if we wanna use the word, rigged against us. The idea that fair play is not really existing. We can't go into these ideas and fights anymore thinking there's any gonna be any fair fight, any leveling of anything. So we have to be really ready, when we're looking ahead to be really smart and strategic about what we're doing because we cannot expect people and let's move into the next phase of this because I wanna talk about primaries, but what I wanna do is say to people what we're gonna be doing, working on is protecting the election this year for the midterms. I think that we should pay really big attention. Y'all watching what Trump said. One thing we know they're doing is running around once the voting rights was gutted, going down to all these states and really going after wherever they see Section 2 redistricting, looking for wherever Black people are elected to take these seats away. And this is a serious thing they're doing to dismantle not only Democratic power, Black voices. It is something also just to win. They do not care. It has a lot to do with more like taking those seats, taking the power at any, we have to be aware. But we also know that Cleta Mitchell, remember Cleta Mitchell? She was had a lot to do with tampering of election equipment and so on. I think she even almost went to jail for all that. She just pushed out a handbook that talks about how they're going to handle the election. We have to really be aware. It's almost like Project 2025 on elections, stricter voter ID requirements, ending same day registration, restricting mail voting. So we know their plan. They put the plan out. So what are we going to do about it? And I think that we have to take agency around it. And let's talk about agency. Fennell, you've been really saying um, enough of this passivity in our communities and with people. They have to really start to really want to be informed and take agency over what is happening to them. So I do think we have to pay attention and start worrying, preparing and getting ahead of this assault on us. And at the same time, people have to start taking responsibility over their civic life.
Yeah, so 2 things. I do wanna go back, to one
Yeah, go
thing,
ahead.
though, before I tell you what I've been thinking about that, and that's this, is that the Supreme Court,
Right.
is our biggest challenge at this point,
Yes.
and they are woefully unfair, and I think you can see that as well in terms of
Yes.
when we took our case to the Supreme Court. So, it could play out multiple ways, but just understand in that Louisiana decision that typically is 31 days, and if you are not within that period, you can't
Right.
go back and change things. Every single time that there has been some redistricting that was to the advantage of people of color, Black people, or Democrats, they have made them wait 2 years before they change
Right.
those maps. They allowed them to go back and change these maps in the midst of elections. You just go back and redraw them. So we have a Supreme Court that is not playing fair, even when it comes to following their own procedures, which says again for us in our Supreme Court, in this case about elections, were we following our own procedures? So it's just unfair. It's stacked against us, and we have no choice but to fight. Now, going back to people taking their own agency. I was saying this, and it's not nice, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's not going to make us do any less. But I am. When I think about all of the campaigns, the ones that we have really fought for in 24, we fought for the campaigns. We're still doing an autopsy, blah blah blah, which we should see. Fine. But at the end of the day, we're always blaming the candidates. They should have done this, they should have done that. And yes, there are things that they should have done. And we could be clear about that. That's strategy, there are
Right.
tactics, there are things that they could be done. But I do not think that we should take away the responsibility of people who did not vote, people who were disengaged, people who felt like for whatever reason their vote didn't matter or I didn't get enough information, as if they don't have a responsibility
Right.
for themselves as a member of our community, of our country, to take responsibility and gather information for yourself so that you know what's going on. We become so absorbed in everyday stuff that we don't have 60 seconds to stop and pause and say, what is happening that is going to affect my life today, affect my children, affect my mom's Social Security, affect my sister's health care, affect my health care, my insurance, my anything. We have not been able to get this country and people engaged until they had to pay more for gas. And
Right,
so, fine, we're there. But now we have an opportunity that is horrible. So, you know what they say, never let a crisis go to waste.
right,
So now we are in crisis mode. And now we have to figure out how to make this thing work. And that's what I was talking about earlier in terms of, yeah, I'm gonna not talk as nice to people as I've talked to them before because I'm mad, because I need you to pay attention and I need you to stop blaming other folks because you didn't get out and vote. Now we have some work to do. You didn't
right,
vote the last time. You're part of this problem. So here's the consequences. So here's how you fix it. So I just think that we have to stop holding people by the hand and just
right,
babying them along. We are in an existential crisis here. We don't have
right.
time to be babying people. We got to tell you what's happening and what you need to do in order to help us save ourselves.
Yeah,
That's
I
where
mean,
I am.
people will wake up too late to think, I know that they were you were talking about people's money, and Tim and I had a conversation, Tim Sawinski here again, a candidate running in CD1, and we talk about primaries and the importance of it, and I know that we are really as somebody that does this work, have been doing it for 10 years. We have our Big 10 Women's Summit coming up August 21st. Definitely make sure y'all get in the room for that. We know the primaries are healthy. Sometimes, yeah, they sort of get people all riled up, and it seems like could be some people don't like them. They can feel it's a distraction and it's a waste of time and money. It isn't. What we find is that because now we know that we have elected people that are making decisions based on their corporate lobbyist donors, or maybe they are really have ambitions to be president. So they're making decisions now, looking down the road. Like if I vote for this bill and then I go run for president, I don't want to look like I'm just beholden to this particular group. We need to make sure the people we're electing right now have our back. And so I was talking to Tim. We know that there's other candidates in that race that were actually at the march. The healthy primary can really help us sort of talk about what matters to us. And having, 5 or 7 candidates out there right now, I do think that healthy debate is going to help us figure out where we are. And somebody like Tim is the voice, he's moving around his whole district talking to people. So you can imagine if you have 7 people running for office in a district, what a great opportunity to inform people what's happening. Because guess what? Did everybody forget that 2027, that big, bad, beautiful bill, those cuts to Medicare, and then how it may impact your benefits? And that now they're reframing how we talk about our benefits. Maybe they're not ours. And what we see, you know, is really bad, even with crypto and banking and the treasury. And we're seeing a fleecing of our country. We have an opportunity in the primary and the midterms to talk really strongly with American people. So where are you? I'm thinking about that for really getting our messaging out. We have a real opportunity to talk to people because of the primary
Yes.
everywhere, every state. Let's talk about
Yes.
it.
Yeah. So let me tell you what I think about primaries. I used to think that primaries were probably not as useful as they could be, especially when it was so many candidates. And I also think that so I think differently about that now because I think we've gotten a couple of candidates where we've found that we
Right,
are really on a different side in terms of how we think about things. And so I think primaries are a really good opportunity and you have to, make it happen where people are in the room and you actually can hear their
right,
viewpoints on things. Because I know I'm listening much different the way that I used to listen about how people talk about things and how they express themselves and how they look at how
right,
we move forward. I know accountability is really important. I know that making sure that we talk about the Supreme Court is important. I know that making sure we talk about how we treat all Americans. What are the things? Are you able to really hold down a conversation and be your authentic self, or are you too afraid that you're gonna offend somebody? And I think that we've gotta figure that out because once we've made the selection, only the folks who are paying close attention are gonna be in the voting in the primaries, right? Because we can't get people in the general. We're gonna have a hard time bringing them out in primaries, but it will be the hardcore voters who are going to select people. Now, what I'm gonna say is once they're selected, you got what you got, and you need to figure out how to stick with it. But what I will also say is when we have 7 or 8 or 9 people in a primary, There are strategies that are not just all money in terms of how you engage with people. Those folks in the primary who knock every single door,
Right,
who walk the streets, Mondami showed you how to do that no matter where you are. Doesn't matter whether you're rural or suburban or urban, that strategy works for everybody, which means that people see your face, they see the hard work that you do, they hear what you have to say face to face,
right.
and then they go out and vote. And that's not money. Every single door that you hit is a dollar that you save, and it's a dollar that a person who's doing ads can't get. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And Tim is really in the room talking to this, and he's right. Big primaries mobilize voters early. And I think this is really critical when we talk about our strategy in Virginia. Maybe there's some way when we do talk to these candidates, we want to have them on, Tim on, the people in one, in seven, talking about these issues. Because when you go up to a door and say, "What's on your mind?" somebody like Tim is actually talking to people, right? Uh, yeah. I'm laughing at and somebody's like,
She says, invite
invite
me
me
to
to
the
the
live
live
stream. This is
stream. This
great.
is great.
This
Oh,
is great.
yeah.
She or he can't tell which one. It really is great because I was going to say, in terms of wasting a lot of money, both things can be true because they really did take a lot of money and resources to get through this Yes campaign. We're probably never, ever going to get over that. But it did demonstrate our power. And
Yes.
for the grassroots side, I don't know that we would have been able to demonstrate our power and to show people what we were capable of doing from the grassroots side.
Yeah.
So I do want to say something though about that we talked about on Friday, and we're, like, almost out of time, but maybe we can do it the next time. So I guess what I'll say is, we've talked about what's happening in the South. Nobody is immune from this because it can be everywhere. So we've got to really engage and mobilize people, talk to people, how whatever moves them, vision, values, scary, whatever it is, we got to talk to every single person. But I also want to talk about the brand, and maybe we do that next week because I do think that we cannot just say that the brand is the same as the Republican brand, and we're going to be okay with that because we're just going to talk about affordability. I do think that we can have this conversation next week about what we think is important in terms of turning this brand around in a really short period of time so that people can at least see that we hear them and we understand what they think about this brand, but we can tell people who we are today. And if we can't get it done at the top of the DNC or the DCCC or the
Mhm.
DSCC or whoever, from a grassroots perspective, we're the ones on the ground. We can surely tell people who we are and what we are about.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's critically important.
yeah, when I think about the best elections, some of them we had to really get out to talk to voters, the only thing that just drove us crazy, it seems like after the primary's over, when there's a lot of people in it, it seems like people just disappear. But I do think it's one really interesting strategy we can talk about with all of the districts in Virginia. And it has been really confusing in Virginia because we went through the Yes campaign, we had all these candidates move over here, and we had then this reshuffling. So I think one thing that for Virginia at least. I don't know if anybody's here from a different state in the chat, but I mean, everybody is a bit different. I also want to point out why this is so important in the primary. And I don't know if anybody else has been tracking this, but there's the Genius Bill, the Genius Act. Anybody saw that? That kind of flew over my head. We've been so busy with the Voting Rights Act. But what they're voting on in Congress, the Genius Act had to do with crypto, a crypto regulation bill that's not and overall, some Democrats voted for this, and this is bad because it really voted for the least regulation ever, and when crypto really cripples our overall, standing, like, if it goes belly up, and it has before, it could really take down our whole economy, and the way that they're able this is very concerning, and I think we need to ask the hard questions about why some of these Democrats are voting for the Genius Act, and I think there was, I think Ruben Gallego voted for it, Angela also Brooks, and I think there's a lot to talk about before we really, when we talk to people that we're electing to office, because they get up there and then they vote for the Lake and Riley Act. We saw two Congress people in Virginia vote that way. So, I know we got shut down. We're talking to Congresswoman McClellan about that. She was like, "Oh, all the candidates are really great." Okay, I know they are, but let's say that we've been burned. So
Yeah,
we don't want purity.
I was
We want people to understand the freaking fight. And if you're funded by crypto, we want to know, right? You're funded by Dominion Energy. We want to know, right?
Yeah, I wanna know, but I might care less. That so,
You
I
should care a lot. Who's funding people?
no, 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 no,
Nope,
let me
nope,
let me
nope,
tell
nope.
you.
What? But
No,
come on,
no, no,
start
no,
over. What
no,
do you
no, 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 let me tell you, I might care
say?
less. Because here is the thing,
Right?
until we get rid of Citizens United, until we get rid of stuff, there will be this thing about who's taking money. My question is, if you take the money, does it require you to vote in a certain way? Because I think you get in office and then you show what you're made of. And then we have the opportunity after 2 years to vote your tail out if you did not do what we think you should do. The question is, once you get there, I mean, I don't know why Angela Alsobrooke voted that way, but she should tell us why. We should understand why she voted that way. They need to make themselves
Right.
available to tell us why they voted that way. What I would also say though is this. I do have an expectation that there are some bills like the Lincoln Riley. That one is a hard,
That
you're
was
a
a hard
hard time explaining to me why
one.
you voted for that. But at the end of the day,
Right.
with people who are on the Trump team, if you don't vote with them, they just kick you out immediately.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
already living in a dictatorship. There are
Yeah.
because they have
That's so
no
true.
voice. They can't do anything. That they're done. And we don't want to be that way either. We know that we have a big tent of people, and we're never ever going to have a person who is always going to vote exactly like we want them to
No,
do.
no.
We're never going to have them.
But
But they do have a responsibility to explain their votes.
well, I think this is why primaries are important, and we can't let people skate thinking, "Oh, they got the endorsement of the DNC right now." We need to hear from them because it's important to ask the questions now. Because when I'm talking about the Genius Act, why it's so important is because it is about not debating if even crypto is really something that should exist. It's debating who profits, who regulates it, and who gets protected when it crashes. And what we understand right now is like well, we saw the recession crash and we see that we're like $29 trillion in debt. We are, this is kind of an inside rot, right? And we're like looking at the Voting Rights Act, we're looking at all these things in our democracy, our institutions. So I do think when going back to the primaries that we have a real great opportunity just to have great conversation. And it's not so much even, yeah, maybe you took some money from something, but it's really like your brand, your value add. Let's hear about you, like what you care about. And I do think that will elicit just better representation and then get people excited out to vote. Let's just go back to the Spanberger decision with the union thing. That was really tough. That was a tough hit. And it was a tough hit because when you elect somebody, you do all the work in the relationship, and then there is the actual down to the wire vote. She went ahead and put some amendments on it that a lot of people felt were sort of changed the bill's integrity, right? And then it comes back.
Hmm.
And regardless of, like, let's just say the unions and if they should have that much influence and maybe things weren't ready, it's about, you know, our relationship with our elected, our relationship with our brand, and communicating why exactly somebody would go ahead and vote this way. Because what I saw happen after that, Governor Spanberger voted down the collective bargaining, is that there wasn't the time and relationship made to talk to people. Because when you see that many people come out and put out a disappointment letter, or that many people come out with some strong statements, you understand that politics is about relationships, trust, and respect. And I would argue that's the thing in our Democratic brand when we go run in the midterms. We want people to trust us. I want to trust if I'm working for Tim, I want Tim to be a congressperson. We have a conversation and I expect something that he's told me about himself that he cares about, that I know he's going to represent those values and he's going to make a good decision, right? And I think that that kind of stuff can hurt us when we're trying to go talk to voters again. And what are your thoughts of that? Like, when it comes down to our values, which is our brand, right? That we
So
working class people, we're that advocate for them. We care about rural hospitals. We care about rural workers. And then we do this. And we said, this is kind of, it's bugging me. That really bugged me.
So let me say this. I don't know about the Genius Act. I don't know why Angela Alsobrooke voted for it, but she can explain that because I
Yeah.
hear in here it's unforgivable, it's scrapped, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is, so I can't really talk to it. I don't know why she did it. I
That,
don't understand the bill well enough. So you guys got that one. But in terms of the governor, before she was elected, there was a lot of discussion about where she was on this bill for the right to work, that bill, and she was not there then.
Mhm.
And the SI whatever, I can't get the initials right, but that
SEIU.
organization,
Yeah. Mhm.
SEIU,
David Broke
they
the to yeah.
yeah, they were very gracious, and they were like, "We're still gonna support, we're gonna knock doors, we're gonna do all of these things, and then we're gonna talk to her when she gets elected." Because they knew that despite whatever happened, that she was gonna be a better governor to all of us than
Absolutely.
Winsome Sears would ever be, right?
Well, they
So
endorsed
so
her, but not the other union didn't endorse her, so just be
yeah,
clear
yeah,
that
I know, but
collective bargaining
exactly, but
workers endorsed her.
exactly, but exactly, but she was gonna be better than that, and I do think that I don't know what's gonna happen with this. There was probably a whole bunch of ways that she could have done this, and maybe there are still some things that she can do. I don't know, but I still think that at the end of the day, there is a time and a place
Yeah,
for everything, and we are in one of the worst places as a country that we
I
can be right now,
understand.
in terms of the things that are affecting people every day, and I'm not saying that this bill isn't one of them, but at the end of the day, if we go trashing our governor to the point where our candidates can't even have her there, they're gonna take
Oh,
some of they're gonna get some of that wiped off on them. We already have a brand that's in the toilet. If we then lose, how much better
okay,
off are we
I'm
then?
gonna argue. I love that we're kinda disagreeing on this because I would say to you that people aren't trashing her, they're telling that what I've seen is most of it.
No,
Except
no,
some of the I've
they're
seen
trashing
the
her.
people okay,
They're
so
trashing her.
I know, I have seen the people that can't help themselves on that. But I would say to you that it's up to our people that in elected office to think this out as well. Like you just said exactly what you're worried about, and I am worried about it too. So my big question would be why somebody that would understand what's at risk right now. We see the gutting of the voting rights. We see the danger to working class people. We see the danger to the we see so much out there they would know this would be detrimental and harmful and so wouldn't there be a way to negotiate this a month before 2 weeks before to come out some way a winner because they understood how important the midterms is so what really bothers me because I can't as an activist I have no control over it so I haven't posted anything and I probably won't because I'm not interested in trash but I'm interested in this that respect, trust, relationships matter. And the lesson for me is not so much did you veto or not veto, but people have to, in our party, that our brand gets stuff. She did 90% of great stuff, but it's making sure that you are bringing people along with you because then you have to bring your voters along. She has the biggest bullhorn. We saw Youngkin use it and abuse it. And she has a responsibility to be out there telling people how she feels about it and more. And that's what I'm more hurt about is that these are the people that have your back. These are the people that you needed to be in the room with. And when there's that lack and that failure, that bothers me. And I want her to succeed. And so I'm here as a friend saying, it's really important to let your citizens know, bring along your people. Um, and because then when that harm happens and trust is lost, boy, that's tough to go back to the table. That's tough. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think we have
I
the
don't dis
information. I wish we weren't.
I don't disagree with
I
any of that.
know.
I don't disagree with any of that, but everybody has a responsibility, and
Yeah.
we have to look at where we're going, the rest of this until November 3rd, 2026, and if we lose in November 2026 because our governor is in the toilet, people are mad about this, that, or the other, because we couldn't see strategically far enough ahead to understand what was ahead of us, and I'm gonna be really mad,
I'm gonna
really
be
mad.
mad too, but I'm saying to you,
And I'm not and not only am I gonna be really mad, I'm moving.
I know. And again, I'll say to you that we have spent 10 years trying to smooth over things to not to I remember all the way back early on, don't we tiptoe around stuff because we wanna make sure that, that people will go and vote or people will do this, but I think this is the actual governor's responsibility, and maybe
I
we'll
agree.
see moving forward, um, the hurt is there, and I that's what I'm trying to say. I think the failure is in really relationship building and leadership strategy. Nancy Pelosi I told you before, she was a master of it. Like her, hate her, she's the best leader, truly, that she'll go down in history because you read her books of leadership and power. It is how you get in the room with someone and respect and listen to what they need. And at the end, you walk out And maybe the other side and the union side wouldn't have got exactly what they needed, but you need to go and negotiate. And from what I heard, that never happened. So going forward, we know two things. Republicans are gleeful. When Republicans are gleeful, I want to punch somebody. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's never good.
we've been shitting on our governor for a while now. And trust me, I could say this stuff, but if Republicans better put it out of their mouth, what I'm going to say to you, that she has done 90% and more, actually more great, great, great things. She's going to isolate herself in a bubble, though, if she doesn't figure out how to really get the people around her with her. That's leadership and that's strength, and it's important. It's
Well,
important,
I think
or
I
she'll be
think that's
alone. So I'm just
yeah.
saying,
Well, it's not just a
we can be
Spamberger issue.
friends. Like,
That is an issue across the DNC and the
oh
DCCC and
hell
everybody else see
yeah,
is how do you talk to people? How do you bring them along? How do you inspire them? How do you get their hearts
right,
and minds engaged? How do you help them understand where the monsters are? There is all kinds of things in the news that we
right,
can be using every single day. I will tell you, Michelle Hornish is doing some great work around.
right.
We spent $2 billion on this. Guess what this would have been able to buy in terms
It's
of
so true.
medical, healthcare. And so we're watching them grift as we're talking about here with this thing, but we have stuff that's actually happening right now. $1.9 billion from the DOJ to go towards the people
Right.
who peed on January 6th, who peed in the Capitol
Those
and did
people
more
like
than that.
compete in the capital. Listen to your
Who
point.
peed in the Capitol, and we're going to pay them for it. So I'm just
Damn,
saying,
we have so much shit we can say. I mean, look, we have a laundry list, and that's what I'm saying to you about getting distracted. I love a fantasy life. My fantasy life would be somehow they worked out that bill and we moved on, and workers across Virginia were thrilled to be recognized. Firemen were thrilled to be recognized. Imagine the wind at our damn back. That's what I'm saying. That just bothers me that I have to carry this as an activist because we had to do that with Terry McAuliffe at some point. We were like, oh my God, like we got this on our back now and we got to win this election. So I liked, I just, it's a fantasy activist life I want, right? Um,
well, it's just
so
not going to happen.
we refocus ourselves, but we can't treat voters like dummies. We can't be inauthentic. I think we have to be okay to be disappointed. And then, like you said, but like Karen said, we don't have to trash anybody. We can say, we want a better relationship. We're sorry this kind of failed, but we need to get back to our workers. If we care about workers, we care about people in hospitals and rural, and they voted for Spamberger and other Democrats because they believed that they would be better for workers out there. And we have the midterms, then our story has to be, what we did do well, and then also point out the Republicans' graph, because Republicans are going to use this. So everybody listening, we know the Republican strategy is to trash our trash and trash ourselves. So let's make sure we confront our
Yeah,
shit.
so let's not do it for them is what I would say.
No, and I don't
So
think we are talking about it. I am not about trashing anybody, but I am just saying to strategically, we and I get frustrated about strategic stuff. We're strategic thinkers, and we are. And there's no right. So
yeah,
we so man, like we're working down here on this level, so let's make sure that we figure out for the midterms. And I'll be interested in how the other candidates are going to position themselves, but we do know we have a lot to talk about. And let's end this place where I find this to be really interesting. When Cassidy lost his seat, I said to my husband, I'm like, here's a guy that's pretty decent, doctor, physician, don't agree with him all the time, but he did the right damn thing. You talk about Indiana, so we'll go full circle back where you started. Indiana people did the right thing, even if it was self-serving, but they didn't listen to Trump, and they all lost their seat. And it shows me that we have people in this country that it's hard to live in the same country with them. Like that is just some nasty people that are either getting the information that's incorrect, or that they were willing to say that this guy, that they didn't reward him for being an honest, moral man.
that's right. That's
And what
exactly
the
right.
hell? So they're gonna string us up, ready to lynch people. We're up against some really,
That's exactly right. That was my point very early on,
let's
was
make
that
sure
the fact
we
that
know who the
the
monster
point
is. Mhm.
To know where your monsters are and to be able to tell people who, when, where, and how we get rid of them. We have to slay the dragons here. This is no more nice guy. I mean, we are like, we can't use the word shoot. We can't use this.
Yeah.
We can't use that. We can't
They're
be
coming
warriors. We
for
can't
us.
be. No, 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 no. I am a warrior right now. I am trying to slay the dragon because they are monsters trying to kill us. And when Republicans decide that they're going to agree with
Yeah,
Trump and MAGA Republicans
right.
and vote with them, like these folks just did in Indiana, like they just did in Louisiana. I wanna see what they're gonna do in Kentucky with Thomas Massie to
Yes,
say to say, "Oh, yeah, we are with these folks who are
right.
the most horrible," and we have got to call them out for who they are. If
Yes.
these are Republicans, I don't care if they're your neighbor, I don't care if they're your brother or your sister. If you are voting with Trump, you are my enemy. That
Yeah,
is it.
and if
Period,
our
end of story.
when we elect these candidates all across the state that are fighters and can bring that fight to this monster, that's what we need, right? We need to be able to do that. And I think, Virginia is an interesting story and we have a great story to tell. And let me just say to everybody, we know the most difficult leadership is when you have all the power, but it is something that is new to people when you do have it, and it's not always what we think it's going to be. It actually is harder. It's harder to govern when you have all the power, and I think it's a great lesson. But
Well, I'm
yeah,
just gonna say the Trump people is not power, they're just a bunch of incompetent people. I've never seen such incompetence and grift in my entire life, and
it's
that is because Republicans allow them to do it, and those people who support them. It's just sort of interesting to me to see people living on the edge right now, barely able to make it, but they're gonna be okay with him doing a billion-dollar ballroom that they're never gonna see, never gonna be
oh,
invited to, and
they
he
start
wouldn't even
digging
wanna
that
shake
arch.
their
I
hands.
know. It's
So
not a ballroom. It's a
whatever
bunker.
whatever
It's a
the thing is,
bunker.
but my point is, we know what we are doing, and we
Yes, we do.
understand the strategy, and the strategy is to speak to every single voter to help them have the fire in their belly that we have to understand what is at stake. That
Yes.
is what we must do.
I like
So
the people. Kent, you're late to the party. I'm glad you came though. But Martin, we have some fighters in here. People recognize the monsters, white supremacy. We have some solutions talking about white women, right? Fighting for gender equity, needing more white women to come along. I mean, we do have a lot to do. And so from our perspective, we this laying out this plan, voters should be outraged. And I think it is communication is key and how we want to pivot, do new things. And maybe we'll talk about that next week. Maybe we can think about having a guest. We can talk a little bit about really tapping into this anger. What I'm seeing across the board of Black leadership, they're people are angry. People see what's happening, young people, and I think they have awoken. Uh, they awoken, if we say it, not a sleeping giant, because people have always been carrying Black voters, Black folks have been always carrying our democracy to the right place. And white people, we need more coalition building. We need more people to come along with us. And that's going to be, hopefully what we'll definitely get along to. But we're past time, friend. But I'm okay. It was fun. I feel better and my stomach doesn't feel so sick.
I'm so happy about that. Well,
Well,
I'm glad you feel better. I'm so glad. I love all the comments here too today. Thank you guys because this is what we need. This is building our community. We're from the grassroots. We are not television pundits, but we're not
no,
dummies either. And so we
no.
understand what's happening, and we have opinions and viewpoints and strategies and results to back it up. So that's what I'm going to say. So thank you all for being here.
Well, and I wanna plug, I was working on our Women's Summit, and it's a women's summer, all genders summit, and it's August 21st, 23rd, and if you go to our website, networknova.org, check it out. We're just starting our programming, and Fennell is working on masterclass type programming for the afternoon. We're working on this together, but we're going to bring Robert Hebel here. We have Rachel Bidekoffer. We'll have Michelle Hornish is coming, and we will have some big thinkers here. And I think some of these folks in the room would be perfect fit. Um, and if I want to meet some of them, I would love to meet some of them right now. Maybe we'll do some one-on-ones this week for some of our people that come in the room. But we'll have some great programming because I think by then, when we talk about this election integrity and how we need to show up, these people are real. They're coming. They're calling themselves an army, so they're going to meet us. That's all I'm saying to you. Where they're gonna meet, um, an a counter army of people that are gonna be holding up our elections. Don't think you're coming and gonna be scaring us. So we need to get ready, though.
That's right.
Yeah,
All
train.
right. So
All right. Everybody, thank you. Happy Sunday night. We'll see you next
thank
week.
you.
And then Friday, we have Brian Tannehill, Bryn Tannehill here, the analyst that writes for the Atlantic. She'll be here Friday, and the ACLU, Chris Kraser, coming on our live show. So we hope to see somebody in the room there. Okay, Martin, great to see Karen, Martin, everybody in the room. And Belle's here. Belle, we'll great to see Belle from
She
the
keeps it
team.
straight.
Laura Mack, great to see Laura. I don't know. No, Mack's not in here today, but great to see Kent. He's here on our Fridays. Thank you,
Keeps
everybody,
tears
for a
here.
great night. Bye, friend, and hopefully everything.
Bye.
We'll see you
I'll
tomorrow
see you
morning.
tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. Bye.